Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, a very, very special hello to our guest of today. As you see, he is shining as he smiles out of his screen at us. This is the wonderful Ke'oni Hanalei, who is actually appearing or reappearing for the third time because we always have such extraordinary conversations. This is a very remarkable man who is going to reveal to us something very extraordinary about his ancestry and where he lives and what his particular persuasion is, which is just acute and honoring and authentic and deeply magical. So, welcome back, dear Ke'oni.
Stuart, this is such an honor to be invited back for a third time to have this conversation with you. I am so stimulated by the way that you and I conversate, so I'm looking forward to whatever presents itself today.
Well, bless you, bless you. And for those of you who are tuning in, of course, welcome. It's wonderful that you're actually here. As you know, this platform is called Deep Dialogues. So it will be a dialogue. It will be, as Ke'oni has just said, it will be a conversation. And so it won't be just me asking a question and this gentleman going on for about 20 minutes. There will be an equal exchange so that we can muster the magic that we both feel lies deep beneath the words within the resonance of the Logos. And so, be prepared for equal exchange. And you may hear stories coming up. Go with it because we're very practiced speakers, so we know exactly where we want to go in the instinct of the moment. So, this wonderful gentleman is a descendant of the inhabitants of the northwestern island, particularly Maui. But his ancestral line is considerable, one that we need to honor and respect in this moment of hallowed nature as he comes to share a very unique, very extraordinary, deep practice of what it is to be a spiritual being having a human experience. His ancestry spans thousands of years, and he teaches a unique quality of healing through Fern medicine, which he may refer to. So I hope that's enough there's so much that I would want to say about you, but we decided that we would go straight into the essence and the nature of Mu as it arises within our consciousness. But we have a lot of information about Atlantis, although much of it is obviously not taken from written text, because most of the books about Atlantis were burned in the great fires of the Alexandrian library. We know that there are some that are still waiting to be unearthed, to be deeply excavated from beneath the Sphinx. However, so the islands are very special where you are an inhabitant of. So in your heart, what does Mu mean to you?
Yeah, what a beautiful question. And thank you for that introduction, brother. I also want to honor my grandmother, Kawiki Onalani, because my grandmother is truly the one who inspired and maybe even activated me to become an ambassador of this information of Mu, of what some people may refer to as Lemuria. And so I want to honor my grandmother, Kawiki Onalani. When I was born, I was Hanai'd by my grandmother. Hanai is a traditional practice of ancient Hawaii where a child would be brought into either an elder's household or a totally different family's household for the sole purpose of receiving the mo'olelo or the story or the mo'kuauhau or the lineage. And so I was Hanai'd by my grandmother, and my grandmother ensured that I became this receptacle or this archive of my lineage. And my lineage spans 1,017 generations, 20,000 years to the year 18,000 BC. Every Hawaiian has something known as an Oli Helu. An Oli Helu is a genealogical chant. And what we do in the Oli Helu is every generation adds something to that genealogical chant. It's an archive. It's an oral archive. And so we have intact 1,017 generations of the Oli Helu. And so a lot of the information that I pull from, I'm also referencing the Oli Helu. I was just speaking into this, Stuart, about I know all human beings are psychic. I know all human beings are clairvoyant. I feel that maybe what differentiates some of us is that we just have more confidence in our psychic abilities and our clairvoyance. And my access to the Oli Helu gives me that kind of confidence because I can remember something that's very uniquely me. And then I can reference it to the Oli Helu and I'm like, it adds up. It adds up. And so it gives me the confidence to then share that, where I feel a lot of people may not have a tool such as that. And so you feel maybe that your information is incompatible. Status quo of the narrative of what's being endorsed today. But I feel like what's so exciting, and we were talking a little bit about this, Brother Stewart, but what's exciting about right now is that truly in a time of true disclosure, this means that there's a lot of space for everyone to begin to share their story. Everyone's story is valid. Everyone's story is correct. In fact, when we talk about the Mu and the Mu doctrines, perhaps this is how I want to start it. I'm going to start sharing the Mu doctrines or the Mu culture civilization by how the doctrines opens. How it opens.
And so as you go there, could you just give us a definition about the nature of what we're speaking of and that of Lemuria? Because we know Lemuria is a 19th century word that was associated with the extraordinary faith tradition, wisdom tradition that you're talking about. What is your experience of Lemuria and Mu? Could you give us context, please?
Sure, because I feel like most people are familiar with Lemuria. That's more of the popularized word that represents the same thing. Of course, in my Oli Helu and in the doctrines that I have access to, and in my own memory, I don't find the word Lemuria. Of course, I find the word Mu. But when we compare the way that these two seemingly different things are expressed, it's like, oh, it's the same exact thing. And so Helena Blavatsky, who was a theosophist in the 19th century, she published a book in 1888 called The Sacred Doctrine, which is a great read. I would recommend anyone reading that. And she channeled Lemuria. And that was the word that she decided to share in order to express the energy of Mu. Now, Helena Blavatsky wasn't the first one who came up with that word, however. It was actually by a zoologist named Philip Sclater. And Philip Sclater, maybe a decade before Helena Blavatsky published the Sacred Doctrines, he had this theory that, or I would say he had a problem. He had a problem. And his problem was, why are there lemur fossils in India? Why? Lemurs, as many of us know, specifically if we love the lemurs, right? We know they only exist in Madagascar. They only exist in Madagascar. And so Philip Sclater said, we have a problem. How are there fossils in India? And so he theorized that there must have been a landmass that connected Madagascar and India. Well, today we know that continental shift is what occurred and that India separated from Africa. And that's why we have the Himalayas, because of the collision into Asia. But Philip Sclater went with the theory that there was a landmass and that it must have sunk. And he called that landmass Lemuria. Lemuria. And it's as if Helena Blavatsky was inspired to sort of carry on that tradition of what Philip Sclater had shared. And I want to say this again, that everything Helena Blavatsky shared in the Sacred Doctrines to a large degree matches with what my lineage remembers of Mu. And so what she does share seems to be very, I would say, resonant with just that she has chosen to select the word Lemuria rather than Mu, but they are truly the same thing.
And, going back to what we were saying about the beautiful essence of Mu, that Lemuria was actually a form of camouflage to protect what was taking place, because people were being not fully directed into that essence, but of dealing more with the outer cover of what was the potential within the culture. Until this time, where we're hearing the word disclosure being used left, right, and center, we know that there's something very remarkable taking place, which is leading us to the essence of authenticity, so that we can really find out what our authorship is. And so we're uncovering the ancient mysteries, which is what the great prophecy would be. So When you move into the core of all of your teachings and knowing full well that you've experientialized them in such effortless ways over the last 20 odd years, what is right at the very core of the broadcast that you wish to bring to the world?
Yeah, mahalo. So the opening of the Mu Doctrines, it's actually a caution, Stuart. It's a caution. And it opens with saying, the greatest and likely only sin is inauthenticity. Are you living in sin? And so the ancient ones are saying, first authenticity and then do stuff. First position yourself as authentic and sincere and then engage and then share. And so that's really like the pillar, the core of Mu and Lemuria is sincerity of being and authenticity of being. And like you're sharing about that camouflage, what it could likely suggest is that if we default or deviate from our authenticity, we're no longer locatable. We're not locatable. Because what happened with Lemuria or Mu is that it actually did not sink, it vanished. It vanished. I love, like, in your land, when we talk about Avalon and things like that, that's so resonant with Mu, because even as a child, and I heard stories about Avalon, I was like, oh, like Mu, it vanished. It vanished. And with Mu, it vanished because we're no longer in vibration or frequency of the energy of the absorption of love. The absorption of love. It's very specific with the absorption of love. And as we began to deviate from our resonance with the absorption of love, we began to notice that aspects of that reality began to vanish until we are now in the reality that we exist in. And I love to share with people that we still coexist with Mu. It's still here. It's just that because of this vibrational disruption, we just can't see it because we're not at a frequency that is compatible to it. And I'm bringing this, or I brought up the opening of the Mu Doctrines because I feel like that's an important clue in that in order for us to once again be able to engage, interact, enjoy Mu and Lemuria, it really comes down to sincerity and authenticity. Because if that's how the Mu Doctrines opens, that seems to be, it's very pico, as we say in the language. It's very foundation. Everything must begin with authenticity and sincerity.
And so I hear you very loudly and completely concur. Within your traditions, within the magic and the wisdom of this extraordinary practice that you live and now bring forth in the world, how do you allow people to engage with the essence of their authentic self, their authenticity?
Yeah. We can actually bring in a little bit of physics here because
you might, because you know that there are parallels in Western classicism for finding the essence of oneself, which is really in my neck of the woods, dealing with the voice, is really what persona is all about. Persona meaning in Latin through sound. And therefore we have personalities that are based in authenticity that bring forth sound. So if we're sounding our note, we're in authenticity. The difficulty is that most of us have lost our note. So back to the Mu traditions.
Well, I love what you're sharing about sound. And this could be a totally different conversation, but in the Mu Doctrines, it does reference the previous universe. And the previous universe, its base composite was sound. It's sound. And then from sound, it cultivated this thing called electricity. And so sound became kinetic. And then it created this thing called electricity, which can be described as light, which then transferred into this universe and became our base composite. And so our base composite in this universe is electricity. And that's very true. We live in an electrical universe. And our destiny, because every universe has a base composite and has a destiny. So especially in an electrical universe, we must always think in terms of electricity And the greatest way for electricity to function is by way of alternating currents. And so there's this perception of duality. And with the universes, there's a base composite and then there's a destiny. And so our base composite is electricity. This is detailed beautifully in the Mu Doctrines. This is very important for us to come into recognition of, specifically because when we know that we function as an electrical being. That's very important for us to know how to function as an electrical being, specifically when we're working with frequency and vibration. But our destiny in this universe is love. It's love. And this means that humanity, or anything and everything within this universe, we must come to a point of the authority of love. The authority, because we have the kuleana, or the job. We have precious cargo that we must transfer into the next universe, so that the base composite of the next universe is love. And so this is a succession of the legacy of lineages. We happen to be in that which is the base composite of electricity and the destiny of love. But I love what you're sharing about sound, because we are receiving the legacy of that previous universe whose base composite was sound. And then it designed this thing called electricity, and it came into authority of it. We know it came into authority of it because it is our base composite. And so mahalo, thank you so much, right, to that previous universe for succeeding in blessing us with that to which is pretty much holding the foundation of love. And so that's why when I was sharing with Mu, it's about the absorption of love. Feel it like, as we come into this universe, we're like a womb and we're gestating. And as we're gestating, we're being absorbed of the love to which we get to come into authority of, or authorship of, in order to then transfer it into the next universe. If I may, Stuart, this is a fun little additive to sort of like the exceptional nature of this universe, but the word Mu, in Hawaiian language, our entire language is comprised of something called Kaona, and Kaona means reverse speak. It's the only known language in the world where our entire language is engineered in reverse speak. And the way the Kaona works is that the reverse speak of any word is instructions on how to embody the word. Kind of important in this universe for us to come into embodiment, because that's how we come into authority of love. We must participate and be in the activity of it, not just as an audience member of it. But so the reverse speak helps us in accomplishing that. It says, okay, the reverse speak is instructions on how to actually embody the word. And so if Mu is the absorption of love, then the reverse speak comes to Umu. And you'll notice that I add a U at the end of the reverse speak. That's purposeful and deliberate, because in Hawaiian language, every single word must end in a vowel. It's indicative of closing a circuit. And so we would recycle the first vowel. And that's why we arrive at umu. So umu means oven to bake, maturate. And so notice how it complements the absorption of love. It's to maturate. It's to bake. We're here to be in a form and a structure because we're creating, we're gestating, we're growing. Something is happening in an inanimate world, which actually gives us authority of love so that love can be transferred into the next universe.
So when you speak of love transferring into the next universe, do you feel that the vibration of love was so exquisitely high in its vibrational capacity in ancient times that this is what created the conduction of force that allowed Mu to vanish?
Oh, that's such a good question, because when I work with Fern medicine, which is a relic of Mu as well, Pua Ehu Fern medicine. So there are 103 ferns that correlate to 103 emotions. Remember, we live in an electrical universe. So our emotions is how human beings experience electricity within our body. And so very important. But the common question I get when I share with people there's 103 emotions is, what's the fern of love? That's the one I want to play with. That's the one I want to revere in my house. I want to put in a vase, right? I want to wear as a garland. They're all great, by the way. But but love is like the popular one, right? There is no one form of love. Because love is the culmination of all emotions. This is deliberate and purposeful. Because when we get to the totality of love, when the gestation, the maturation has been accomplished, and we are in the authority of love, this world of form cannot hold it. It will collapse this world. And therefore, I mean, that's called transfiguration. It's called ascension. Yeah. How we complete this universe is we must collapse it, which is why there's a lot of concern about the attachments that many people have of this very specific reality, which means you're not available to collapse this universe, which is purposeful and deliberate, so that we can transfer into the next universe. But to answer your question, yeah, the energy of love is so colossal. The total energy of love is so colossal that this world cannot hold it. That is our passage into the next universe.
Well, it will hold it, of course, isn't it, won't it, in terms of the new reality that we're creating upon Earth. I mean, that's the transition point, isn't it? So that the great project of spirit coming into matter, that matter or mater, the Divine Mother, will shift her focus. I mean, I speak prophetically, but I feel that we're going to be able to... I respond well to what you're saying. There's just one question that I want to tease through, which is to do with the notion of collapse. Now, we know what you're saying from a physics point of view, that energy literally enfolds within itself. So for us, we can see there's a transformational quality about that, which moves us into what we talk about as being collapse. I would like to see, as we move forward, that less collapse is spoken about in relation to that we know needs to be dissolved, transmuted, transformed into a higher vibrational unit, or not unit, environmental and dimensional reality. So it seems to me that if we can start using correction, which isn't to do with the fact that something is wrong, but the fact that we're moving in this transmutational way to find what evolution really is as we go through this project as hominids of spirit into matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I feel like we can all, play with the ways to which that we select and choose to have a relationship with these concepts, specifically when they can be so provocative. Yeah. But let's think like this. At some point, the evolution must reverse itself. Remember, this is an electrical universe, so we live in alternating currents. The current has to alternate at some point. And so from a point of evolution, there's no more growth to be made. We must now evolve. And evolve is another way to which we can perceive that collapse happening, where it's opening that portal that actually delivers us into a totally different universe, something that is not present right now. And that's why a lot of the work that I do, that seems to be a concern that continuously comes up, is attachment to a very specific kind of reality, which then keeps us locked. And so the invitation is to allow ourselves to become so absorbed or so enlightened with love that it actually delivers us into something that we cannot predict right now. And I think that can be very scary for a lot of us, especially because we've come into this pattern of control and needing to predict so much that something beyond this perception of reality can feel so threatening to us.
Yeah. What about the role of magnetism? Is it actually the insertion of magnetism, electromagnetic? Is it that magnetism draws us to a way of being able to perceive on a multi-perceptual level, where the illusion of control totally dissolves as we manage by being integrous within the flow of the divinity of what love brings us, in the sense of the way that it affects our physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and etheric bodies, because we know it is primarily transformative. It brings us to something which is much greater, so that we move from what we see as a hard and fast rule. It's like going back to what you were saying about there's a lot of anxiety about what is taking place at this time, we're opening to the wisdom of uncertainty. But this is a new energy for us because we're ancestrally so plugged into the nature of the illusion of permanency. And now we're realizing that there is no such thing as permanency. But the patriarchy has tried to create that in the 5 major establishments. So we're moving into, so when this is the time where we need to trust, have belief and faith in the universe, in the divine Mother, Father, God source, so that we can live the wisdom of uncertainty to flow forward with great ease. And as soon as we surrender or yield, then life takes over, and wow, isn't it exciting ride? So maybe that's where the role of magnetism falls into, or not falls into, but literally cascades into the process of what you're sharing with us. I want you to go back, if we may, to that whole nature of how you teach authenticity, how you teach true embodiment, and particularly through the excitement and the wonder of the natural terrain that you are in such love for and with. Because, you know, everything about you is about this embodiment, this richness of the way that you pulse and you rhythmically move. And I know, you know, here you are just sharing with us briefly about the nature of Fern medicine and the 103 emotions. Could you give us perhaps a taste of, if somebody arrives on Maui and wants to work with you expressly, and you meet them, and it's obvious that the miasma of complexities that they're carrying is purely and simply because they're not living in their center, they're not living in authenticity, and therefore they've created sort of detritus all the way through their lives. And you bring them back to their center, to their authenticity, to the love of the wonder. What would you know, if I were that person, what would you do with me in the wonder of the natural landscape of Maui?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking this, brother. I do want to include fern medicine in this response, because there's a fern that I feel is very powerful and potent right now for many of us, specifically those of us who have been enthralled in the cosplay and the fraud and the plagiarism and living insincerely. There's a fern called Kilaupu'eo, and Kilaupu'eo holds the codes of the emotion or the electrical surge of ruin. And oftentimes, Stuart, when I present that to people, it's like they shut down, right? They close up. It's like they lock up because it can seem so non-friendly, when actually something in energy like ruin is sharing with us parts of you must become destroyed. And the parts that are inauthentic and insincere, the parts of us that promote the systemic plagiarism and cosplay. Because what Kilaupu'eo ultimately accomplishes by way of just supporting us and coming into our own skill, is it allows us to relocate ourselves as the strongest gravitational force in this universe. And truly, that's really what brings us back into sincerity, because the strongest gravitational force within us, which is our heart. So the heart, it's a muscle, right, Stuart? And if we unfold it, it's interesting. It's like a tapestry. And say if we let it go and we let it spiral, curl back up, it actually curls into a spiral. And in the very center of a heart, it's a conundrum a little bit. I love this. It's a blank space. It's just an air pocket. And so we're just like, oh, I guess that's just the way it is. The heart's, there's a blank space. No, it's a black hole. It's a black hole. That's microscopic, that we cannot see, but it's incredibly powerful. And that's why every human with our heart is a center of gravity. We all have a black hole. The reason why this is especially important is because the black hole, which is the densest form of gravity, is the only thing that we know to be atemporal or not governed by time. This means that our heart brings us into timelessness. And it's the resolution of all the hyperbolic patterns that we've been creating, that we become involved and enmeshed in. And so we can even feel like that perception of magnetism or collapse is bringing us back into our center of gravity, where we're confronted with our own black hole, or we're confronted with timelessness. And I love that when I'm confronted with timelessness, it will have questions for me, such as, you sure? You want to keep playing over here. You want to keep doing this. You want to keep building. Do you want to keep doing that? If so, then you're going to be pulled into something or someone else's gravitational force. But this is a diplomatic universe. It's all based on free will. And so there's no right or wrong, good or bad. And that's what I love about what my grandmother shared with me and what the opening of the Mu Doctrine shares when it talks about inauthenticity, because it's not about right or wrong, good or bad. Authenticity actually has nothing to do with right or wrong, good or bad. These are insertions that have sort of took over the collective psyche to where we are attempting to live out someone else's expectations of who we need to be. And that's become catastrophic, where with the help of someone like Kilau Puel, the Fern of Ruin, I know it sounds a little harsh, but at the same time, it's dissolving and resolving all the LARPing, the cosplay, everything that just makes, at least for me, it's made me feel so insecure. Because when I'm in the plagiarism, I'm always thinking, am I doing it right? Am I going to get graded? Am I going to get scolded? I'm comparing myself, constantly comparing myself. When we come into our own gravitational force, we loosen our grip on this fascination with comparison. And then what's great about that is when I'm no longer fascinated with comparison, this also means that I loosen my grip of expectations of who people need to be for me. Because I'm honoring sincerity of being, not right or wrong, good or bad, because right or wrong, good or bad, according to whom? Who gets to decide right or wrong, good or bad for everyone? And so the effects that it has when we come into our gravitational force it's really, really paradigm shifting.
You use the word sincere 4 times. And every time you say it, because being a student of truth, I've looked into these words that we use that are either, that are comparison, but that is sincere, that is insincere. And the word sincere means without wax. Sincere, without wax.
I love that.
Which means we go back to, so now this is arguably the origins of Western civilization. You and I know that it wasn't, but we're talking about the Greek-Roman civilization. That during the period of Greece, of course, we know that there was a preoccupation with the glory of beauty because it was an emanation of the divine. And so many extraordinary architectural forms were created, wonderful temples, wonderful palaces, wonderful buildings. And also there they were sculpting extraordinary statues. And mostly using porous material like marble, which of course it takes a long time to sculpt marble. So let's say one day, you leave your apprentices in the studio, in the atelier, to keep sculpting, and one of them has had too much vino the night before, and there they are with their chisel, and suddenly, as a result of chiseling away, there is a crack in the marble. What do? Do you break the entire statue and start again? No, they fill the crack with wax. So to be without wax is to be pure in form.
Wow.
And as a result of pure in form, we get to the essence of the entity that lies within the stone that is speaking to the great artist, to the great master craftsperson who has spent many, many years in devotion, in discipline, in veneration of the craft, learning the skill as you learned from your grandmother, to go right back into what we're beginning to see we really need in the Western world, which is an understanding of the 0 point that you were drawing us to, the black hole in the heart, which is the word that I'm using at the moment is absolute. Because when we become absolute, we move into the sacred nature of what the essence of truth really is, out of which pours, like a fountain, words like authenticity, sincerity, integrity, which really is a word that means the radiation of integration. The only way we can integrate is if the integers of our being, namely physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, are coming into integration so that we can shine forth with truth. Not that there's anything wrong, as you were saying, about inauthenticity, but we also know that today, in the beautiful movement of these currents that we're bringing forth, ancient wisdom made modern for contemporary life, that we're seeing the most important thing is to get true, is to cut out, move away from the remnants of the ego, emotion gone out, and to get true with the Fern medicine of 103 emotions. And how many people today have a feeling literacy where they're able to qualify 103 emotions or feelings?
What a great question. First, that is so fascinating that it means without wax. Wow. And I love the way that you built that up, right? Yeah, that makes perfect sense, brother. To be pure without needing even additions.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so beautiful, brother.
Well, because we know that when we heal our cracks, our bodies are self-correcting and self-organizing. So automatically the wounds are healed. The fissure of the wound suddenly heals. And so, as we know, one of the contemporary, I know you and I have spoken about this before, that if we're working with people who are deeply wounded, that we engage them in describing the scar tissue rather than going deep into the wound and rebleeding it through the repetition of the scenario that created the wound. And, I was listening to somebody this morning who was a great, great teacher who was talking about the elemental force of his developmental wisdom at the moment, which is all about acceptance. As soon as we accept, we go back into the 0 point of what the truth is all about, which I was just using the word absolutism. And it stops the pixelation of opinions. All of these ideas of opinions that are, we know that there used to be a wonderful arena of debate where opinions were all being used as levers to get to the truth. But today, of course, they become ego points.
Wow. Yes, brother, AO to that. And with your sharing about acceptance, that's actually the very foundation of true ho'oponopono.
Right.
It's actually not forgiveness, although of course, forgiveness can be very beautiful, but the foundation of true ho'oponopono is acceptance. And so, And I mean, maybe I'd love to ask you this too, because this is kind of fascinating to me now, because there's a fern called Vavaiole, and it's the fern of acceptance. But brother, like, if there's a way for you to express, like, how is acceptance foundational? Like, what would be a way that you share that? Like, how and why would acceptance be foundational?
It's through deep devotion. It's recognizing that there is a force beyond us that we are part of, but at the same time that is beyond us, which is ultimately completely sacred. That we at this time need to develop reverence and veneration and adoration of the divine. And as soon as we do this, there is complete acceptance, because we know that the divine, whatever we engage in, and sometimes we can be really stupid and really naughty, that wherever we are engaged, that the divine simply waits in stillness until we start to create reparation ourselves. And we do this by, we know the great awakening points. Is it inspirational, or is it through desperation? Well, we find if we're in desperation, that we sit in the stillness, we go through the long dark night of the soul, we suddenly find that the waves of our weeping cease, and there is this remarkable stillness. And that's, of course, when we always meet our guide. I see the heart as being a beautiful crystal cave, and within the center of the heart is this magician, this magi, who is just waiting to greet us in absolute love, total surrender, complete forgiveness, total acceptance. So in this moment, that's what I would share.
I love that, brother. And even correlating this to that gravitational force is like accepting that I am the strongest gravitational force in my life. Yeah. And I remember Heather Ensworth and I were talking about how some people hesitate when they say a statement such as, I am the center of this universe. And sometimes we're just like, oh my gosh, you're not allowed to say that. But as far as logistics, that's accurate. It's accurate for each and every one of us to say, I am the center of this universe. And it's not an ego thing. It's simply confirming that I am a force within this universe, and that everything, it's like the saying, the day creates itself through me, nothing more. Otherwise, I risk, right, getting pulled into the narratives or the beliefs or the truths of others. And then my whole life is spent trying to endorse that. And then we live insincerely, and then we will never grasp that energy of mu, because we are disqualifying ourselves of that frequency of mu, because there is such incredible self-rejection.
This is beautiful. So we're onto something really fundamental within our sharing today, within this deep dialogue. And so as we go into the 0 point, as we go into the black hole, as we go into the fact that deep within us, we are a refraction of the universe, that we are the universe is us. What would you recommend if you were to choose 3 essential levers or ways of being that allow us to move into fully understanding what that feels like? What would you recommend?
Oh, I love this, because I get to be spontaneous right now. The first thing that just came to me, Stuart, is curiosity. That was truly the first thing that came to me, is curiosity. And I would like to personalize that in saying that curiosity of oneself. It's like, can I wake up in the morning and be interested in me? Can I be interested in what I believe in? Can I be interested in what I love? And I feel like maybe that's where the whole story can begin. Because remember, the opening of the Mu Doctrine says, the greatest and likely only sin is inauthenticity. Are you living in sin? And then do something from that. And so can we even have just basic interest within ourselves, in equal measure, of course, to the interest that we have with others? I love this world, Stuart, because we're allowed to engage and interact. We can transfer data and information, just like you're sharing, right? Like, this is a world of such incredible contrast and the potential for debate. But to never lose the alpha, that gravitational force that is within our heart, that is the alpha. And to ensure that alpha is always tugging as we are engaging and navigating this world. And so I think that's for 3. But yeah, it seems like curiosity, interest, and then I would love to like close that circuit, so to speak, with love.
Yeah. That's fascinating, because I must play with this, because I think you'll find it really amusing. You say curiosity. I was thinking in that second, is that nth of a second when you said that, what would I suggest?
Yeah.
In my truth, and it was get naked.
Yeah. I mean, that's authentic, Stuart, right? Yeah.
And the curiosity leads one into relationship of, well, if I get naked, that is just me naked. But if I actually go deep into the sacred nature of the beauty of the planet, and I'm thinking specifically of the wonderful time that I've spent on Maui and moving into the magic of the islands. There we are in relationship with this soil, the fern, the tree, the volcano. So we're feeling earth, water, air, and fire, and the ethers binding us, but we're in relationship, in awe and in wonder of the beauty of nature, which doesn't have, for example, that tree in the garden outside your house doesn't have an energy standing next to it like a little man saying, grow, drop your leaves. But that tree, through its complete essential understanding, through its root and fiber network, and the way that the leaves pick up all of that amazing synthetic information from the electromagnetic universe, it's allowing itself to yield to the great flow of nature.
I love that.
When we get authentic, we move into flow. So
Mm-hmm.
You have a project coming up which sounds amazingly scintillating. And please feel free to use this as a platform to broadcast what you're going to be doing in a few weeks' time. But I know much of that project is also speaking about the wisdoms that your peoples have received over the years by relationship or interconnectivity with the fact that we are not the only species living within the universe, that there are other species whom we're referring to as star beings. And I know that you have 6 nations of star beings that you relate to in the most playful, in the most loving, and also in a way that has most credence for you. Perhaps you could speak about, because we're living in an energy of disclosure at the moment, so perhaps you could speak, would you mind speaking about the wisdom of the 6 nations?
Yes, brother. Yes, mahalo. And I also want to share, as you're giving that beautiful presentation of what we're just speaking into, another thing came to me, and the importance of allowance really came through strongly as you're sharing. So I just wanted to voice that. That seemed really important to address that. But yes, brother, the star lineages, according to Mu, and I will be teaching a course within the container that is held and offered by Kelly Kalani and the Angel Raphael, which I know many of the audience is familiar with. And so it's going to be a fun partnership to work with that community. So
can you give us the dates? Give us the dates.
Okay, it is actually next week. What is next week, brother? July 22nd? What is next week?
The 20th. But you begin on the 22nd, don't you? So next week, July 22nd, Ke'oni is going to be 2 weeks, yeah. Oh, we've lost you verbally. I can't hear you. That's interesting.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying those dates, brother. And those will be 6 ceremonies in total, which is interesting because there's 6 star lineages. And so it gives us the space to really dive in to let these lineages gestate, right, with each one of those ceremonies. This conversation really took a life of its own when Heather Ensworth, our mutual friend, she asked me, what is the medicine wheel according to Native Hawaiian people? And so Hawaiian people, we don't have a medicine wheel that is likened to a lot of the other cultures in the world where we're talking about northeast, southwest. And something to note about Hawaiian people or any culture within the Pacific is we're master navigators. And so when we talk about logistics or directions, we will nearly always be referring to stars. In fact, we know that the stars are our family members. And so we treat them like family members. We talk to them, right? We nourish them. We invite them to our parties. We invite them to our conversations, all of that. And so the medicine wheel for Native Hawaiians is actually star lineages. And there's actually 6. There's 6. And this can relate to the traditional directions within an earth-based reality that's so fun to even muse into. But so these 6 star lineages, they create a grid all around us of the solar system, and they're converging on this solar system. And as of right now, they're converging on Earth. I say that because they may have converged on another planet at some point. But for right now, they're converging on Earth. And therefore, Earth is benefiting from the consolidation of these star lineages. And there's 6. Now, to name drop someone else, Veda Austin, I asked Veda if she had ever done crystallography of the inner earth waters. Those of you who are not familiar with Veda Austin, she does crystallography with water, and they show these amazing depictions, the relationship with water as intelligence. So I was very compelled. I asked her if she has done crystallography of the inner earth waters, and she said, yes, of course. And she showed me the depiction, and it's a hexagon. And a hexagon has 6 sides, and that, of course, activated me. I'm like, it's referring to the star lineages. The inner earth beings are saying, yes, the star lineages are converging upon the earth. And so we have 6 star lineages, and each star lineage has an element and has an experiment. So there's 4 lineages that I feel that most of us are versed in either consciously or unconsciously. And I say 4 because there's also 4 elements that we seem to be very enmeshed in. And there's 4 directions that we're sort of versed in. Of course, those 4 elements are air, fire, water, earth. And then it's like ... But there's 2 more. There's 2 more elements. And it's important for human beings to become versed and to reinvite the family of those 2 other elements so that we can become the whole human, the total human. And so the 4 first star lineages are Draco, Mataroro, Arcturus, Hokulea, A'a, Sirius, Makali, the Pleiades. Those are the 4-star lineages that seem to be contemporized right now. The 5th star lineage and the 6th are sort of like distant cousins, so to speak. Like we don't have a proper relationship or mainstream. I shouldn't say that. Many people have very strong relationships with them, but mainstream, we don't seem to have a grasp on these lineages. And that would be the 5th is Lyra and the 6th is Crux. We can feel that Lyra today is like, it's like an up and coming lineage, so to speak. It's coming into our sphere of awareness. And I noticed so many people starting to talk about Lyra. How about you, Stuart? Have you noticed that Lyra is just part of the conversation again?
Oh God, yeah. But it's also very acute in my consciousness. So I speak a lot about Lyra. Yeah. So absolutely, it's fluid at the moment, which is interesting, because it, as you were saying, associated in the most integral way with the other star systems, but at the same time, just gently breezing over there in the outer levels. And now suddenly it's becoming magnetized into the possibility of the way that the unified force of the Intergalactic Council will start speaking with we Earth beings. They are already speaking, of course, but it's telepathic, and many of us don't receive or register what the information is. But soon, the level of our physiological, emotional, and etheric nature will open us. So Lyra will be there.
Yeah, I feel that too, brother. I feel like it's all sophisticated, right? And it's like it's time. It's Lyra's time right now. And that's why it's starting to embrace all of us and infuse all of us. And the conversation comes in and we're starting to feel more Lyran in some ways. So the 5th element, because Lyra is the 5th lineage, this means that Lyra holds the 5th element. And I feel like the 5th element has been so elusive because it's something that maybe we've popularized, but there's contention as far as to what exactly it is. Is it love? Is it the rainbow love? Is it this? Is it that? So what I want to share with everyone is not a de facto. I never want to come off as if I'm assigning anyone. But what I'm doing once again is I'm remembering and then I'm matching it with my Oli Helu, and it matches what the 5th element is. And that's gravity. It's gravity. So from Earth, we go into gravity. Earth is the 4th element. From Earth, we go into gravity. It makes perfect sense because there's that involution that I was speaking into, specifically with how Earth itself is a gravitational force. This also means that within the 5th world to which we are coming into right now, because Lyra is so strong right now, we're all being invited into conversations and recognition of gravity. And so everything that we were speaking into about the heart being that force of gravity, we're starting to feel it. It's not just talk. It's not just rhetoric. It's like, whoa, this is a real experience I'm having. I'm feeling heart-centered. I feel heart coherence. I don't know how to put words to this, but it's happening. Yes, that's indicative of Lyra coming to the forefront because we are now transitioning into the 5th world. And the Hopis, right? The Hopis say that we are stuck in the 4th world until the appearance of the blue star Kachina. And I always love the reference that Vega is blue. And that's the greatest star within the Lyra constellation. And then also what supports, and this is more of a scientific support of the 5th element being gravity, is that every single star in the constellation of Lyra is egg-shaped. And the reason why they're egg-shaped is because they're in such close proximity to one another. It's a cluster that they pull on one another's diameter.
And so they are versed in gravity. And so gravity is even showcased in that constellation as their gift. It's the fifth element. And that would mean, right? Because remember, we're talking about the heart is atemporal, and that brings us into timelessness. This means that the fifth dimension is timelessness. And so in order to reconcile all the timelines that we seem to be captivated in, it's coming into the gravitational force that is the heart, that brings us into the fifth dimension that qualifies as the fifth, or the fifth dimension that qualifies as the fifth, or the fifth element that qualifies as the fifth dimension.
So I can feel the oscillating degrees in my field as you speak. And as I embrace the completeness of what you're suggesting, when I say complete, I mean the clarity and the truth of what you speak. And I wonder, is it necessary for us to create greater space within our field to inculcate the vibrational wisdom of all of these amazing pointers that you're offering us? Or is it that we actually open up the internal mechanism of our heart so the toroidal nature of our being embraces the fullness of what you're suggesting, and therefore we don't need to create space. What we need to do is to yield to the etheric nature of the way that our crystalline body is opening up so that we may embrace the vibrational flow of all of this wisdom. Through feeling, and not through the cerebral.
Oh yeah, that feels great. And you know, the sensation, if I were to put words to the sensation, is pull in. Because especially if we, sometimes this is me, if I need to accommodate more space all the time, I have to expand more. I have to create more measure rather than the inversion of that, which is to pull in. And so what you're just sharing, yeah, that feels so good, brother, because the sixth element, or the 6-star lineage, which is only a consequence of the fifth. This is a sequence. So the sixth needs the fifth to lay the foundation, so to speak, or to pull in. The sixth is Crux. It's Crux. So something unique about the logistics. Wow, logistics is coming in strong today, right, brother, in our conversation. That's interesting. But something about the logistics with Crux is it's a circumpolar southern constellation. Draco, the alpha, is a circumpolar northern. And so notice how they're holding Earth. They're gestating Earth and all of us. These lineages are literally holding us. And the logistics proves that. But the 6-star lineage of Crux, the experiment and the element are one and the same. And that's resurrection. Resurrection. And feel it like this, because now I'm going to bring it back to the traditional directions. North, east, south, west. And then the fifth, we have concluded that it's the self. What's the sixth? The sixth is what's on the other side of the black hole. That's Crux. Crux delivers us into the next universe because it is access to what's on the other side of the black hole, which is the next universe.
In ancient numerology, I mean, I deal with the Pythagorean tradition. 6 is the number of the lovers, meaning that you get the two qualities of the essential vibration of the duality coming together into union. And of course, we know within our humanity that when male and female come together, whatever the sexuality is, there is always creation, there is always procreation, which is the element of unfolding on a much deeper level in this sense. It could be the production of a child, of course, but that's another level of unfolding. So it seems that we're going into the very core of what the union is all about so that we can resurrect into a true remembering of what our potential is. That's how it feels.
Yeah, I love it.
The more we yield, the more we surrender, the more it's going to happen, right?
Yes.
To bring up an element that we've addressed several times, but slightly earlier in our conversation, that if we're engaged in control, which is what the thinking mind has been developed into doing over the last 300 years, particularly through the rapid rise of literacy, and now into the doing of the educational model. And of course, we can see that it's led us into a form of intellectual tyranny. If we can see that there is no way that we can control, but what we can do is manage this, I feel that's what the wisdom that you and I are sharing is all about. You know, for example, do you surf? Are you a surfer? I imagine you. I see you on a board surfing, not regularly, but sometimes.
More so paddling.
Yeah, you know that when you're on the board, you can't control the wave, but what you can do is manage yourself on the board on the wave. So you're waiting for the divine inspiration of the wave to move you, and then you follow it. Riding a horse, we can't control a horse, but what we can do is manage ourselves upon the horse. And when we meld with the extraordinary musculature and spirit of the horse carries us in the most exciting way. The image of the James Cameron movies come to mind, of those wonderful people. Avatar, yeah, jumping on the back of those extraordinary flying beings, or the ones that run four-legged through the forest. Anyway, this has been an amazing conversation, and we've reached a point of completion. We've reached an hour, and it feels as though we've been talking for about 2 minutes. Absolutely fascinating. I want to thank you deeply for all that you share, and just to remind everybody that Ke'oni will be doing what I did just a few weeks ago with the dear Kelly Kolodny. Look up. You can go to her website, as I'm sure we will put your website on as well. But Kelly's website is archangelraphael.com. Is that right? Is it? Yes, Angel Raphael. No, it's angelraphael.com. And yours we'll put up because it's unusual. Oh, there we are. Thank you, Ryan. Magic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed the wonderful, exclusive, inclusive, wise meanderings of this conversation and have been able to take from it all sorts of wonderful treasures that you can utilize in your own lives. And, you know, you can see Ke'oni and I have this interesting vibrational match. So we will be inviting him back on. I hope he'll come later in the year to reveal to us the next level of becoming.
Yeah, I would love that, Stuart. I would so love that. Mahalo. Thank you so much, brother.
Put you in the hot seat and saying, you are coming on. This has been amazing. And please do stay where you are. But to all of you out there, namaste, namaste, namaste. And may your ways be proven to be allowing and accepting, yielding to the pulse and the rhythm of the great divine Mother, Father, God source. Because when you do, it's going to be much easier than all of the entanglement of struggle. Bless you all. And thank you, Ryan.